Hi, this is Tutor Nick P, and this is lesson 96. Today we're going to look at the difference between memorize and remember. Yeah, this is one that students mess up a lot. A lot of times they're using memorize when they should really be using remember. We only use memorize in very few situations. So again, here's just the general definition of remember, which is very, very common. To have an idea, image, or fact in your mind from the past. Yeah, so you remember a lot of things. All right, now, what do we mean by memorize? By memorize, we mean to learn something so well, like you got it perfectly, so well that you remember it exactly and easily. You're trying to remember something either word for word or every little detail or every little note in it. That's what you mean by to memorize. Or we often say to remember by heart. It's another way that we say to memorize in this sense. You're trying to learn it perfectly so you could repeat it perfectly. All right, so here's another note. When you memorize something, you are purposely trying to implant it. Get it in that head. You're trying to implant it in your mind because you need that information or you think it is important. We usually memorize things that are not too long, like numbers that are important for some reason, or you might memorize something short, like a poem that you think is important or that's good for you. So we usually memorize things like that. Could you memorize a really, really long speech? You could, but the longer it is, the harder it is to memorize and keep it so exact. So we tend to memorize things that are not too long. Well, for most of us, anyway. All right, so all right. I'm giving you some examples of mistakes too, because this is how students often use it. They'll often say, "I memorized what I had for breakfast." No, you don't say that. You say, "I remember what I had for breakfast." If you say you memorized what you had for breakfast, it seems like you were studying it. Oh, let me see. I had eggs and bacon and vegetables, and I better remember this. This is important. Somebody's going to test me on this later. No, you just simply remember it. So, of course, the correct way, with the check here would mean I remember what I had for breakfast. Good. All right, here's another example that would be incorrect. I memorized I was supposed to pick up milk before going home. No, this is another situation where you definitely just say remember. I remember I was supposed to pick up milk before going home. All right, good. And I'll just give you here's 4 other examples with memorize. These are things that we typically do memorize. Like, I memorize my ID number, or in the U.S., somebody might memorize their social security number, or some number that's important for that reason. Number 2, I memorized his telephone number. Could be, even though this used to be very common that we memorize telephone numbers. Now it's a little less because we usually just store telephone numbers in our phone, so we don't have to memorize them as much as before. But you still might memorize it for some reason. I had to memorize that poem for my English class. Yeah, sometimes a teacher will ask you to memorize something, usually something short like a poem, maybe a prayer, or maybe like a paragraph or some quotes from somebody. You might memorize something like that. All right, good. So, and let's look at the 4th one. I memorized the number of my combination lock. Yeah, this is important, especially in school, but you could have a combination lock for anything. Remember the one, you got to probably turn it around, turn right, then turn it back left, then turn right again, and hopefully it will open. That sort of a lock is a combination lock. So you have to remember the numbers. You have to remember them perfectly. So this is what we mean by to memorize. So we only memorize things that we want to learn perfectly. We want to remember every detail or every word or every number. All right, well, I hope that clarifies it. I hope you can easily see the difference of when we should use remember and when we should use memorize. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.